So, what do I mean by your liquidators lying to you? Well, okay, I was a bit cheeky there with the thumbnail title, but they're lying to you by omission. Granted, not all of them, hopefully not me. Um, but there's two different types of lying by omission that I see committed by other insolvency practitioner firms that directors come back to me and complain about. So the first is that they don't discuss the statutory investigation that we have to do once we're appointed as liquidators. So our relationship with directors is a bit odd, really. Sometimes it can be sort of viewed as gamekeeper turned poacher. And the reason for that is the director will come to us and will explain that for whatever reason, we've eliminated all other options and liquidation is the best option for their company in the circumstances. And then, assuming they instruct us, we will then hold their hand through that process and help them place their company into liquidation. But then our role changes. Once we're appointed as liquidators, part of our duties is to do an investigation into what's caused the company's demise and whether or not the directors have committed any misconduct. And if they have committed misconduct, we then have to report that misconduct to the insolvency services, who can fine or disqualify a director. And we also have the power to pursue the directors personally and potentially sue them for whatever type of misconduct it is that they've committed. And so a lot of IPs won't explain that in their initial chats with the directors. They don't explain the investigation. For sales purposes, they want to reel the case in and they don't want to put the directors off. Of course, it'll be somewhere in their terms and conditions, in their engagement letters. The directors will have been notified of that somewhere. But let's face it, when you're given a load of paperwork to fill in and read, not all directors bother to read it to that extent, or they just see that and they will just dismiss it. And so then when there is an investigation and then there is a subsequent claim by their insolvency practitioner, further down the line, 3 months, 6 months later, that can come as quite a shock. Because they don't know anything about it, because they haven't done their research, and because the insolvency practitioner didn't mention that beforehand. And the second thing that I hear of happening is in relation to overdrawn direct loan accounts, DLAs. And so you can see my other video on these, but this is effectively where directors have drawn money out of the company and they now owe that money back and they have to pay back what they can afford to the liquidators. And I prefer to have this conversation with them up front so that we can explore how much they can afford to pay back and reach an agreement on how and when and what methods they're going to use to settle that director's loan account before we push the go button to liquidate, so that they are fully informed, they're aware of all their options, and they've got that comfort of knowing exactly where they stand, assuming the company is liquidated and we're appointed liquidators. What some other IPs will do is brush over it and say to the directors, yeah, don't worry about it, that'll all get sorted post liquidation. And then what happens post liquidation is they get a demand from the liquidator saying you've got 7 days to repay your DLA back. And, perhaps they weren't aware of that whatsoever, or they didn't even realize they had an overdrawn director's loan account. There was no warning given that they were going to be getting this demand, or perhaps they just didn't realize it was as high as they've been pursued for. They thought it was one figure and it's actually a different one. Or perhaps the insolvency practitioner or manager, whoever it was that gave them the advice pre-liquidation, gave them some kind of inkling that they would allow some discount or that they wouldn't have to pay very much of it back or anything of it back. And that was never agreed in writing. And so subsequently, they're potentially now dealing with a completely different member of staff who's now in charge at the insolvency practitioners firm, and they say we don't have any record of that discussion or that decision. The person they spoke to's left, or is denying that conversation ever took place. So I would say do your investigation do your research, sorry, into the investigation that we carry out. Make sure you're fully informed. If there are any potential red flags and you're a bit worried about something and you think, oh, have I done something wrong there? Is that going to come back to bite me? Have a chat, pick up the phone, I'll speak to you. You can ring me anonymously if you want, and I can explain to you what I would do if I was your liquidator and how serious or not I think it is. If you've got an outstanding director's loan account, you've been speaking to another insolvency practitioner and they've made promises to you about how much you're going to have to pay back, get that in writing. Ask them to follow that up in an email. And if you're unsure, get a second opinion. For me, my chat is always free and confidential, and you're not obligated to instruct me, even if I can assist you. So you can pick up the phone anonymously if you like, and we'll have a quick chat. But always do your research before you instruct your insolvency practitioner.